Is called to order. Ooh, there we go. Darcy McCracken, the city clerk, will swear in the new members of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Will you please rise? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Anthony Walsh,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and defend them against all enemies,
and defend them against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of Commissioner
discharge the duties of Commissioner
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so I do affirm.
So I do affirm.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Sounds like just when I joined the service at the same time.
Okay. All right. Oh, sorry, you just sat down, but please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I will note the roll. Commissioner Wang is present. Commissioner Sambito is present. Commissioner Hegedus is present. Commissioner Hamilton is present. Commissioner Booth is present. Commissioner Clymer is present. Commissioner Kish is present. We have a quorum. We will now accept nominations for chairman.
I would like to nominate Jason Kish.
We have a nomination. Is it seconded?
I'll second.
Okay. And so we have a it's been moved and seconded for Commissioner Kish to become chairman. Can I, everyone say aye?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Congratulations, Chairman Kish. We will now accept nominations for vice chairman.
I nominate Commissioner Clymer.
Can I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded for Commissioner Clymer to become vice chairman. I will put that to a vote. Everyone who's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Motion passes, and Commissioner Clymer is now Vice Chairman Clymer. And we will now take a recess.
officially end recess. First time with the gavel. All right. Item number 1 is to approve the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on February 16th, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
Movement by Vice Commissioner Clymer. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Marlin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now it's time for citizens who would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any non-agenda item. Are there any speaker cards? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on any non-agenda item? All right. This is the opportunity for commission members to disclose any ex parte communications that they may have had prior to this meeting on the items scheduled for discussion on this agenda. Are there any ex parte communications? Seeing none. All right. Agenda number 2 is the PAD amendment for 10303 Business Park, and I'll open the public hearing. Principal Karen will present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, this is the 10303 Business Park PAD amendment. The subject property is in Northwest Goodyear. It's just west of the State 303 corridor at the northwest corner of Indian School Road and Minnesota Avenue. The subject property in this Amazon site where the recently opened distribution center is were approved in 2007 as the 10303 Business Park Planned Area Development. And PAD is a zoning district in and of itself, and it basically sets standards and guidelines for a particular area of development. Now, both of those properties remained undeveloped from 2007 until the Amazon facility was built in 2020. That 10303 PAD zoning also included underlying I-2 general industrial zoning on the Amazon site. And the I-2 is what I would call our heaviest industrial zoning district. And then the subject property has underlying I-1, light industrial, on it. That 10303 PAD also included stipulations and standards that were intended to address the planned Talaverde residential development to the west, and that was in this area here. When the PAD was going through the process in 2007, the thought was that this development, to be known as Talaverde, a single-family development, was going to be built there. And so those stipulations included a requirement for a use permit for any building larger than 250,000 square feet that might be located adjacent to the western boundary of the PAD. So that's the western boundary of that subject property that was shown on the aerial. And that use permit would also be required for dock level bay doors on the west side of any industrial building that might be adjacent to the western boundary of that property. And then within the PAD itself, there was a standard that the I-1 parcel, the subject property, had a maximum building height of 40 feet. And that was what the zoning ordinance standard for I-1 zoning was back in 2007. Since then, the city council in 2016 amended the zoning ordinance standard that buildings within I-1 could be, wherever in the city could have a maximum building height of 50 feet, just as the I-2 had always had. So some changes naturally have happened to the surrounding area since 2007. Talaverde never did happen. At least a dozen industrial buildings averaging over 600,000 square feet and with maximum building heights of 50 feet have developed to the east and west of the subject property. There's, in addition to the Amazon building that's right there, the Microsoft data center is being developed on the south side of Indian School Road. Daimler is up there along Indian School. Ferrero has built a facility there. Sub-Zero Wolf moved in several years ago over on the east side of Cotton. There's Dick's Sporting Goods and REI. So the industrial development has really taken off in this area. And of course, the 303 is now a major roadway for not only vehicular traffic, but certainly industrial transportation traffic. And since then, we've had a major residential developer who has come into the city, purchased that Talaverde property, and he has begun to plat it for single-family homes at 8 dwelling units per acre. Now, if this amendment is approved, the PAD amendment request that we received from Majestic Realty Company, they are proposing to develop 2 warehouse distribution buildings on this property if the amendment is approved. So just under 400,000 square feet and 460,000 square feet. Neither of which will have dock level bay doors along that west property line, and both of which would utilize the requested maximum building height of 50 feet. Now, to facilitate the development happening the way that we would like it to happen through the site plan approval process and with our zoning ordinance criteria and design guidelines, we're recommending that requirement from the original PAD be deleted, the requirement to have a use permit for buildings over 250,000 square feet and for dock level bay doors facing the west property line. And the use permit process would have been a process very similar to this PAD amendment process. It would be a public hearing process where surrounding property owners get notified. The use permit request would come before you all for a recommendation, and then it would go on to the city council for a final decision. And also because we wanted to make sure that what Majestic Realty was talking to us about developing on the property, we wanted to make sure that's what would develop on the property. We're also recommending some general conformance criteria for any development, quite frankly, that occurs on the property. Should Majestic Realty go away, that general conformance criteria that we're putting into the PAD amendment ordinance would apply to the property. It doesn't apply just to Majestic, it applies to the property. And we've been working extensively with Majestic on their development plans. We really went into a lot more detail with them than we normally would in a PAD amendment process because there's still site plan approval to go through after the PAD amendment gets approved, where most of the details are all ironed out. But we wanted to do that now, again, to ensure that there would be few, if any, negative impacts on that future adjacent residential property. So this is the concept plan that they came up with. The 2 buildings, the square footages that I talked to you about, less than 500,000 square feet, and 40-foot clear height, which is in the clear height of the inside of the building. And so those typically result in about a building height of about 46 to 48 feet, but within that maximum 50-foot cap that we're putting on the property. And just like, as I said, to make sure that whatever happens on this property, it's the least impactful as possible to those future residents, we are spelling out these criteria that conceptual plan represents, but we're spelling it out so that, as I said, if Majestic goes away, those regulations are still part of the development of this property, and anybody who develops it would have to adhere to those regulations. And one of the, besides related to the building itself, we're also requiring a 30-foot wide landscape buffer along that west property line with a double row of staggered trees. And that's our typical screening requirement that we have when there are dock doors. And there won't be any dock doors, but we're still going to have them do that screening requirement. And we found that that works out very well. And then there will also always be a masonry wall there too. So in combination between the wall and the landscaping, it should really do a good job of buffering. We took the PAD amendment through the normal public participation process. We notified the owners of all properties within 500 feet that we'd received this PAD amendment application. The only inquiry we got was from Meritage Homes, who is the home builder, who has bought the adjacent property and is platting it. He and I had a conversation about what was being proposed, and he said to me, well, yeah, that's what's happening around here. The industrial development is what's taking place around here. We knew that when we bought the property. We anticipated it. And, you know, I think they'll probably make some adjustments on their lot sizes along that shared property line so that perhaps there will be some larger backyards so that, you know, if folks themselves want to do some tree planting or whatever, they will have the space to do that. But he said to me, as far as the proposal is concerned, Meritage is neutral on it. They don't oppose it. You know, they're not going to come out and say, oh, yeah, we think it's wonderful, but they're not opposing it. They're accepting of it and moving on with their plans. Then we had a neighborhood meeting on the 25th of January. No one attended. Those same property owners were notified of this commission meeting and the city council meeting that's going to occur on the 28th. And the subject property was posted. And there was a legal ad in the newspaper. And again, no inquiries, no inquiries other than that first one that we got from Meritage Homes. And so with the recommended inclusion of that general conformance criteria, we find that the amendment really does allow for the orderly growth and development of the area, the development that's occurring now, and then it will be in conformance with our zoning ordinance, our design guidelines, and the engineering standards. And we are asking that the Planning Commission vote to recommend approval of the PAD amendment by the City Council. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Brett Tremaine from Majestic Realty is here as well, if you'd like to hear from him or have any questions from him. For him, sorry.
Thank you, Karen. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
I was wondering if Karen could clarify a couple questions I had as I read. Generally, the area out there tends to fall towards the 10, looking at the industrial buildings that are being built right there. Is this site slightly lower than the residential to the northwest?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Commissioner, first of all, thank you very much for letting staff know about your questions ahead of the meeting, because I took the opportunity to consult with one of our staff engineers. And yes, I'm told that from that residential property all the way in kind of a southeasterly direction over towards the 303, the land slopes that way and drains that way. He told me that our engineering drainage standards have a requirement that the finished floor elevations of the buildings be 1.5 feet above the lowest point of the site. And that will allow for that drainage to occur. And, I asked if, he said that was a minimum. And I said, does anybody ever want to do it more than that? And he said, no, because they don't want to pay for the dirt. So yeah, it should all, slowly drain in the normal course of things as they are now. But it'll be channeled, of course, to go in the same way.
So effectively, that would add a little more of a grade differential for the future residents.
Yeah.
Could you also tell me, or do you have an idea? I understand Meritage purchased it and they're platting the lots. Who do you think will build first? Who's closer? I mean, there's so much warehouse activity out there. I picture them just popping right up.
Yeah.
But is there a potential for the housing to be first?
I think that there is, because there's a much shorter process for the house plans, the standard plans to get reviewed and approved, and then permits issued based on those standard plans. Whereas this PAD amendment is just the beginning step. Then, like I said, they need to go through site plan approval, and that can take several months, quite frankly, because of the workload that we have, but it does take a while. Then civil construction documents need to be submitted. Then building construction documents need to be submitted. And that, again, because of workload, can take several months for the reviews to occur. And then the site work gets involved first. And so, yeah, quite honestly, I think there's going to be several homes in that area before the actual building starts coming up out of the ground.
Do we have an idea of where Meritage might start their first phase? Ideally, probably away from the construction.
Here's the expert on that development.
I'm trying to get to the point that I want the new people, our new residents, to see that, ooh, there's a big building there. Because someone who's not familiar with that, it's hard for them to see on a flat drawing what they're looking at. Unlike a developer, either Meritage or Majestic. We have that concept.
Commissioner, thank you. Meritage is starting on the north half, so closer to Camelback. And that's their first phase.
Perfect. That's exactly, yeah. So by the time they get to the bottom, there's a good chance things will be happening. So people will be able to ask the questions logically. Very good. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? Karen, can you pull up the map of where this location is going to be one more time? I had a question regarding the build out right there.
Okay.
So can you, the subject property, where's the Meritage homes going to be exactly?
Where this
Right there, okay.
property is here, and as Alex said, they're going to start up by Camelback, so.
Is there, what is the road situation with Sedella and Indian School, and then is there another road that runs through that connects Camelback to Indian School, or is it just Camelback, Citrus, Indian School?
Well, Minnesota Avenue was recently started by the Amazon people. As you know, when the development occurs, they develop the half street of the adjacent roadway this in front of their property. So they've developed it from Cotton Lane. It existed over here by Dick's Sporting Goods and REI or Ball already. But then when Amazon came in here to do their site, then they did half of the roadway here, and may have done the other side. I'm not sure. But anyways, they've connected Cotton down to Indian School. When this subject property gets developed, they will also improve their half-street frontage. And then we have another project in the works now going through their site plan process, so they're a little further along and are anxious to be submitting construction documents. So if Amazon didn't do this side of it as part of an agreement, that new development will. So that connection will be made to handle all the traffic for all of this development here.
And just south of the R16, is that also residential or in that odd shaped
Yeah, they're weird.
pie
aren't they?
thing? I don't even know what that slope is.
These are, and this is tight, the curve here is, I believe, related to the Luke Air
Okay.
Force Base.
All right, that's the fly zone.
But this is commercial zoning here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to address the commission? There you go.
Good evening, yeah. Mr. Chairman, congratulations.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you taking the time to hear this evening. Just want to introduce myself, Brett Tremaine. I'm a managing partner with Majestic. I oversee a lot of the markets here on the West Coast. And just by way of a brief background, we're a family-owned, family-operated company. We've been in business since 1948. And so we have the pleasure of developing all throughout the United States. And we have had a strong presence here in the greater Phoenix Valley for many decades now. I do get the benefit of building a lot of cities, and I also like to compliment staff. And your staff's done a great job right through the public works. We've worked very hard to prepare the plan, working with Karen. She's been great, along with the fire marshal. And so it's been a nice coordinated process. Harry Paxton with the Economic Development Group has been very helpful as well. So I always like to pass along, it's not always this great in a lot of cities we do business with, so I want to compliment. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions, and again, we appreciate you taking the time this evening. And one quick note, Minnesota is 100% completed, Karen. We did a tri-party agreement when the Amazon building went in, and that is now fully built out and taken care of. So I just want to clarify that for the record, okay?
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant? Thank you, and yes, our staff deserves high praise. They do an amazing job.
They do.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, are there anyone in the audience, any speaker cards on this issue? No? All right, I will close the public hearing. Can I have a motion for the amendment to the 10303 Business Park?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the amendment to the 10303 Business Park, 21-300-00007.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kleiner. Do I have a second?
I second.
A second from Commissioner Booth. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 3 is the Ballpark Village rezone. Open the public hearing. Christian is going to be giving his presentation.
Good evening, Chairman Kish and Planning and Zoning Commission. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having fun so far. Hope I don't talk your ear off today.
My name is Christian Williams. I'm a senior planner here with City of Goodyear, and I'm here on behalf of a request from Andy Yoakum to conduct a rezoning within the city. So this presentation is a little different. Before we get into today's case, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the area and what you might expect to see before you in the upcoming months. I'm going to start with Goodyear City Center. The City Center was a general plan land use that was referred to. It was at the four corners of Estrella and Yuma. It was originally envisioned to be the home of our city hall, dating back to the 80s, and it was called to be a high-density downtown Goodyear, if you will, with the city hall. In the early 2000s, the first development in the area was the Goodyear Ballpark. That's the home of our Cleveland Guardians and our Cincinnati Reds. And the Goodyear Ballpark really serves as a jewel of central Goodyear at this time. When council decided a couple years ago to move the city hall from City Center to Civic Square, which is the Estrella Falls area, they directed staff to ensure that this area still remained a special part of the city. So in response to that move, a lot of developers have been coming to the city wanting to create an urban walkable village area within this area. By the general plan, a village center is basically encourages developments to be cohesive, feel connected, a bit more special than the rest, and it allows for some higher density walkable mixed use types of uses. So, and as a response to that, the city recently processed a major general plan amendment, which changed the land use around those four corners to neighborhoods and business and commerce, which allowed a mix of retail and housing to now come into the area. So planning staff also took the lead on further envisioning this area. We worked with Guy and Eslonsky in the Parks and Rec Department, Arts and Culture, to create a logo to really brand this area. And we wanted to create some sense of identity for this area. And we brought that development concept to the developers, and they have embraced it, as you'll see in this upcoming case. So with that being said, this is the first case of many that you will likely see. This one is the first one in this Ballpark Village area, which is here. So we're talking about this one here today. So the property in question today is located it's in central Goodyear. It's located at the southwest corner of Bullard Avenue and Yuma Road. And the property is currently zoned planned area development with an underlying zoning of commercial and industrial. The property is located in this red box here on the map here. And it really acts as a gateway into this area if you're exiting Interstate 10 in Bullard Avenue. Zooming in a little closer, you can see that the project is located on a triangular U-shaped parcel which surrounds our current Goodyear Water Campus. It's north of the Water Campus. It is east of the LGE or Airport Logistics Center. It is west of the city-owned Bullard Wash. It's north of Bullard Avenue in that logistics center, and it is south of the Compass data centers. The current zoning of the property is City Center Air Park Planned Area Development. That was established back in 2006, and the underlying zoning again for that is commercial and industrial. The property we're talking about again is right here. Of note, I stated this earlier, but you're going to receive a lot of rezoning requests in this very same area that are going to include a mix of retail and residential in walkable form. The general plan underlying land use for this area is business and commerce. When we do multifamily presentations, we also like to present to you where other multifamily projects are throughout the city. So as it relates to other multifamily in the area of Goodyear between McDowell Road on the north, future State Route 30 on the south, Perryville on the west, and Bullard on the east, there are 8 established multifamily communities. One of those is for the baseball team. 5 are traditional garden-style apartments or that 2-3-story walk-up apartment, and 2 are that single-family rental where you have 1 or 2 units, typically single-story with a private yard. Those are shown in orange on the map. There are 8 under development or recently completed. 2 of those are garden-style. 6 of those are single-family rental. Shown in yellow, there are 20 zoned for multifamily. 9 of them are likely going to be that single-family rental or townhouse style. 9 are likely going to be garden style. 2 are a part of the city center, which will likely require a rezone. And as a heads up, this one is in for a rezone. We have an application here today. And shown in blue are 4 developments you will likely see in the future, one of which you will see is located here, which is going to be a mixed-use and multifamily development within Ballpark Village. Today, again, the case we're talking about is over here. So the applicant is requesting the property be rezoned to MF24, which is a multifamily district with a PAD or planned area development overlay to facilitate the development of 3 types of products, which is kind of unique for Goodyear. Typically, it's 1 type of product on a lot. They want to do 3 types. The 3 types are that garden-style 3-story walk-up product, a townhouse product with a garage underneath the units, and a product similar to that single-family rental, but 1 or 2-story units that have 3 or fewer units in the building. So the PAD overlay also requires a minimum density of 16 units per acre. That is because the general plan land use of this area is business and commerce. Business and commerce does allow for residential at high densities as well as commercial and in some cases industrial. The use of the PAD overlay tool in this case is justified as the current development standards for a hard MF24 zoning district does not address some of the unique circumstances of this property, such as its odd shape surrounding our water campus and the developers wanting to add 3 different types of multifamily product on this parcel as opposed to all 3-story walk-ups or all 1-story single-story rentals. And I'll cover what that PAD overlay contemplates on the next slide. As a note, the rendering that you see on the upper right-hand side of the screen is not final. This is conceptual in nature, but if the zoning were approved, the next step in the process is that it goes to the internal planning team for administrative review, and we will check the site plan against the provisions which are found in the MF24 zoning, as well as the PAD overlay document that you received in your packet. You with me so far? All right. So I'll highlight a few of those changes in the PAD overlay. I'm going to be brief, but feel free to ask me any questions you have because I don't want us to be here all day. All right, so starting with design standards. Typically, if something is zoned MF24, the district typically is intended for 2 or 3-story apartment buildings, and the design guidelines that we have are written as such. So once a site plan is zoned, again, staff will take it, make sure it follows zoning, and then we will check off the design guideline elements from our guidance document. Since there are 3 products on this site, and one of them will be very much like a single-family rental product, what this document does is clarify that if the product is built and looks like an MF12, we're going to regulate it like an MF12 with some modifications. A few of those deviations include that the units that are along Bullard Wash here on the west side will be allowed to have a separation between the buildings of 10 feet versus 15. The true intent of the 15 is that if it's going into a single-family neighborhood or it's a whole development of 1-story rentals, we don't want them to look all crammed in. We want those perimeter units to feel more like single-family. This development is different in that it does not anticipate it being an entire development of MF24. And the wash is behind it as opposed to single-family homes. Additionally, the designs for these buildings, I'm going to summarize them, but effectively we want vibrant colors on these buildings. We don't want a whole development of all gray, grayer, and grayest. We don't want a development of all tan, tan, or tannest. So this document contemplates how that development will enhance some of those designs. As it relates to setbacks, the PAD contemplates that the parcel may be divided into smaller parcels, but when we talk about the setbacks, we're talking about the perimeter of the parcel. It contemplates that the street setbacks, the typical street setback of 30 feet will be applied to Yuma Road and Bullard Avenue. It contemplates that the typical MF24 side setback for Bullard Wash will be used on this project. And it treats the water campus located kind of in the middle of the site as a side setback. The reason it's clarified is because it's a triangular shaped parcel. It gets kind of weird. We want to provide some certainty and clarity on how we're defining those setbacks. Parking in this development may be provided through a mix of garages, tandem parking in front of garages, covered parking, open parking, and tandem open parking. And in order to provide the city with some certainty as it relates to parking, the developer will have to provide a parking plan with a parking management plan to the city that will be approved with site plan as a condition of receiving that parking. Again, that's to provide us with certainty that the parking will be managed. And if you're going to do tandem parking, you're going to ensure that there's parking passes, things of that nature, so that we don't have the guest parking filled up by people that are lazy like me, right? We don't want that. All right. So private open space. The MF24 residential units typically are required to have a dedicated private open space, like a patio, a small balcony, things of that nature, at a minimum size of 60 square feet. And this whole site zoned MF24, so we have to be very clear on this. With the Antoinette Ballpark Village development, the minimum may be reduced to 55 square feet. This reduction will not apply to more than 20% of the units. And what that is there for is so that the units on the upper floors can have some variety in the building, so that the building doesn't end up just looking like a massive block, so it can have some different articulation and things of that nature. So that it will provide for more diversity. And as discussed elsewhere, some of these reductions are offset by enhancements in amenities, open space, recreational opportunities that are codified within this development document. Ground floor patios may also extend slightly into the landscape setback. Again, the goal here is that this is a village center area. It's more walkable, so if those patios do extend into there, they need to provide direct connections from the patio to the sidewalk, so that those residents, instead of getting in their cars, driving out of the development, and well, if you're already in your car, you might as well go to Target, right? Instead, the goal is that those residents will hopefully walk to the wash, walk to the future retail opportunities in the Ballpark Village area. For the MF12 style units, private backyards that are not along the perimeter may be reduced to 150 square feet versus what would typically be required in MF12 by zoning, which is 200 square feet. That reduction still leaves a very large private yard. If you think about that's about 8 foot by 20 feet in depth and width. And to offset that, they are proposing a landscaping required to landscape the Bullard Wash. Before I get into the Bullard Wash, I'll tell you a little bit more about private open spaces. So if there's a studio unit, this development wants to do something a little unique. In a typical single-family rental, you might have 1 3-bedroom unit in one building or 2 1-bedroom units in one building. This one proposes that you might have 2 2-bedroom or 2 1-bedroom units in a building, and up above it, there might be a studio unit that has its own patio on the rear. So it gives a little bit of a housing diversity option there. If they do a studio unit less than 600 square feet, this would allow them to do a 40-foot wide private open space behind that with a 5-foot depth. The developer will also codify some minimum amenities within this development. They are required to have a minimum of 8,000 square foot clubhouse leasing office, a minimum of 2 resort-style pools, shaded seating areas, dog park, fitness center, which may be co-located with the recreation building, outdoor barbecue areas, tot lots, and turf areas. The developer also is agreeing to construct a 10 to 12 foot wide decomposed granite trail on the city property that is the Bullard Wash. That is currently not funded within the city CIP. It is planned to be a trail, but we don't have plans to do that in the immediate future. The developers agreed to build that trail on our property and convey that to the city for everyone's use in the city. So the provision is that the trail must be constructed or substantially constructed as approved by staff before anything west of the water campus receives a certificate of occupancy. That gives us some teeth to, you're not going to build all your units and then delay on the trail, right? The PAD overlay also requires that there be 4 pedestrian connections to the Bullard Wash, again, so those residents can get access to the wash as opposed to going out the main gate. 10 pedestrian connections to Yuma Road. Again, we want this to be pedestrian friendly. 6 pedestrian connections to Bullard Avenue. And there are various provisions in here about buildings having connections to those streets if they're the MF24 style buildings. The developer will also be building a Ballpark Village monument, which will match the theme and character that you see in the ballpark area. That was on a previous slide. I'll show you it again really quickly. But the goal here is that they are going to be working with the city on the vision of creating this as a gateway entrance into the ballpark area. And they'll also have a mural that will be put on this so that the goal is that the developers have unique murals and art as you're entering this special part of the city. Also want to highlight one other opportunity the developer has brought to us. They need to widen Bullard Avenue in front of their frontage to add bike lanes. We happen to own the frontage in front of our water campus. They've agreed that they will widen that area for the city with no cost to the city so that we don't have to go look for CIP funding for that. To date, there's not been any resident opposition to the case, only calls with general inquiries, largely about the city center Ballpark Village area. And staff has evaluated the impact of this proposed zoning to the greater community with no major concerns being found. Staff recommends you forward an approval recommendation to rezone this property from planned area development with an underlying zoning of commercial and industrial to MF24 with the Anton at Ballpark Village planned area development overlay, which is a PAD district and subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Christian. Do we have any questions for staff?
I just want to thank Christian for taking in my questions and responding to them. That was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I had one question regarding the water campus. Will there be any noise coming from that?
So there is a stipulation that will be required of the developer that, because there sometimes can be noise, we might have to do maintenance on it. Basically, in lease agreements, residents need to be informed that the street might be closed down. They might hear people on loudspeakers. There might be fireworks shows. The water campus might make noise. You might hear planes. As a note, this is outside of the flight path noise level, but we want to make sure that the residents are aware before they're signing leases or buying properties, or if this ever became condos in the future, anybody buying any individual units would know that there might be noise associated with being in an entertainment area.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? The applicant here, would the applicant like to address the commission?
Actually, he would not. For your record, my name is Paul Gilbert, 701 North 44th Street. It's presumptuous of me to add anything to a report that Christian did. We've worked
Well
very
said.
closely with Christian over the last year. This is a terrific project. We're very pleased to be part of it, and I really would be folly on my part to add anything to what Christian has said. It's very thorough and complete. Unfortunately, I may have to reduce my fee somewhat because of his complete report. But we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. We have representing Anton Ballpark Village, Michael Yaniselli, who is here and also available if you have any further questions. We're very excited about this project.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Thank you. My kind of hearing.
Thank you. Is there any speaker cards on this issue? I'll close the public hearing. May I have a motion for the Anton Ballpark Village?
I move approval of the Anton Ballpark Village. I don't remember the item number.
No worries. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
A second from Commissioner, is it Hegedus? Hegedus. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Kish,
Yes.
I probably failed to note it at the proper time because it wasn't a question, but I did want to extend my appreciation to Christian and the applicant. I'm very excited to see a varied product type.
Yes.
As well, I think that is a great benefit to the multifamily residents to have the trail constructed. If nothing else, before everything else out there is built, to have a circuit to walk on. So I just wanted to let you know how appreciative I am to see it done that way. Thank you.
Doing some amazing things over there. Awesome. All right. Let's see here. We are looking at agenda item number 4 is an RPS Indian School rezone. I'd like to open the public hearing. Christian will be right back to back.
Didn't move. All right. So I'm here with a request from Dennis Newcomb to conduct a rezoning on a property within the city. The property is approximately 9.86 acres, and it's located in North Goodyear on the northeast corner of Pebble Creek Parkway and Indian School Road. The property is currently zoned planned area development as part of Palm Valley Phase 5 with an underlying zoning of commercial, and the property is located right here with this red box. For reference, earlier Karen's project was right over here. Zooming in a little closer, you can see that the project is located on a parcel south of the Villas at Palm Valley condominiums. It is north of a regional drainage basin, which is owned by the city of Goodyear. It is west of Palm Valley Phase 5 single-family residence, as well as the Pathways Are Park Senior Living community. And it is east of the Paseo Apartments right here. This is the site. Oh, and there's Pebble Creek. We all love Pebble Creek. All right. So for a little history on the property and its immediate neighbors, the greater Palm Valley Phase 5 area, which surrounds this parcel, was zoned in 2003. That's that purple box there. I should have picked a better color. I'll get to talk to you about that from Christopher later because he's colorblind. But the following year, this property was zoned as mixed-use zoning district under the Palm Valley Phase 5 PAD, and that was established in 2004. The underlying land use designation for that mixed-use commercial was MUC, which is equivalent to the city's general commercial C2. Later that year, in November of 2004, the area which contains the Villas at Palm Valley condominiums and Paseo Apartments was rezoned to residential uses. That's this little area in here. And in 2012, the area that contains Pathways or Park Assisted Living community was zoned, and that's the little area in here. So today, we're talking about the last remnant in this area right here. And as a note, I will point out, we are requesting this be zoned to multifamily from commercial. There is a commercial opportunity half a mile west here at Saraville and Indian School. So as it relates to other multifamily in the area of Goodyear, in the north side between McDowell on the south, Loop 303 on the west, Dysart on the east, and our border on the north, there are 12 established multifamily communities. 8 are garden style, 2 are single family rental, and 3 are retirement or assisted living or senior targeted. Those are in orange. Shown in purple, there are 6 under development or recently completed. 3 are garden style, and 3 are actually in the Civic Square area on single family lots, but they will be rented out. And those are shown in purple. And in yellow, there are 3 zoned for multifamily. 1 is going to be a townhouse style community. 1 is going to be a senior living or senior targeted community. And 1 has a multifamily entitlement. Shown in blue are development applications we have pending our review. And that application is actually RPS Indian School. So the applicant is requesting to zone the property to MF12, which is a multifamily residential district, with a planned area development overlay to facilitate the development of a townhouse-style development on this L-shaped parcel. The use of the PAD overlay is justified as the current development standards for typical MF12 does not address some of the unique circumstances found on this parcel and on the existing, and it doesn't contemplate some of the existing conditions that exist today around it. So on the next slide, I'll cover what is being requested. Starting with height, the MF12 district allows buildings to be 25 feet in height. It also allows an additional 5 feet of height for a parapet. So just to talk about what a parapet is that area above the roof line that might conceal like an air conditioner or things like that or give it some architectural flair. Typically, it's flat on the inside. So typical MF12 will allow for that. But the result of that is you could end up having a bunch of flat roofs if you want to have higher ceilings. So for example, a single floor of a building might be between 8 and 10 foot in height. So and then between the floors, you might have 2 to 4 feet, for air conditioned vents, things of that. And then you might have, another 8 to 10 foot high ceiling. So if you think about doing a 2-story building, you're already at your 25 feet, so you could do a parapet on top to hide some air conditioners or things like that. But again, you would have a flat roof potentially. When you look around Palm Valley, the character of that area is abundantly tile roofs, and the applicant would like to do tile roofs. So this proposed PAD states that a pitched tile roof will be considered the same as a parapet, meaning that 5 foot of height for a pitched roof, we consider that the additional 5 foot in height like a parapet, because they're not considered the same today. Of note, a typical single-family development adjacent here has a height allowance of 30 feet. So if you add a 25-foot roof, 5-foot parapet, you're right in the ballpark. As it relates to setbacks, the PAD overlay would allow the northern side setback to be reduced from 20 feet to 10 feet. This request is supported by staff since the parcel abuts a driveway and not another development, and that driveway is actually common ownership to this site. This also ensures that no building on the site will be closer than 100 feet to the condos to the north. On the south side, the request is to reduce the setback from 20 feet for typical MF12 down to 15 feet, as this site is adjacent to a drainage channel that is more than 80 foot wide, meaning buildings on this site will be set back more than 95 feet from Indian School Road and even further from our friends over in Pebble Creek. On the east rear, the development requests to reduce the setback from 30 feet to 10 feet. And that is for the, for the northern portion that's adjacent to the Park Senior Living area, which is already developed and includes landscape tracks, parking lots, the buildings would be no closer than 70 feet to the closest building on that site. Adjacent to the single family, however, there is a provision with that 10 foot that if it's adjacent to single family, it needs to be 50 feet away. The developer has also agreed that in that 50-foot setback, 30 feet of that will, let me go back. The reason 50 feet was picked is if this site was developed as commercial and had a 30-foot tall building, that building would be set back 50 feet. The developer agreed to keep that certainty there and keep those buildings back 50 feet. Additionally, this area will have to contain at least 15 feet of landscaping in that 50-foot building setback. And it cannot contain a carport or anything like that for an additional 30 feet. So it means if you're in those single-family houses to the east, you won't have a building closer than 50 feet to you. And in addition, you're not going to have a carport sitting right on their side of your wall. You have at least 30 feet of relief from that. Trash enclosures are another biggie. We're always concerned if you have a commercial-style trash enclosure next to something that's built to look almost like a townhouse or single-family rental. This document codifies that those will not be located closer than 20 feet to a residential structure. Effectively, we don't want trashes by people's backyards or their homes. And the PAD overlay also requires pedestrian connections to Pebble Creek Parkway, codifies minimum amenities such as a resort-style pool, tot lots, dog parks, turf areas, shaded outdoor areas. It ensures pedestrian connections are made from each of the units to the amenity center. And if a unit fronts onto an alley or a small driveway, it has to have some enhancements like decorative paving and things like that to slow traffic and make it look attractive. There's a lot of elements about design, compatibility with the overall Palm Valley area, and then retaining that Palm Valley sign that's out on the corner of Pebble Creek and Indian School. So to date, the city has not received any resident opposition to this case, only calls with general inquiries. Staff has evaluated the impact of this proposed zoning on the greater community, and with no major concerns being found, staff recommends you forward an approval recommendation for the rezoning of the property from planned area development with an underlying zoning of commercial to MF12 with the RPS Indian School at Palm Valley planned area development overlay, which is the PAD zoning district and subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. The applicant is here if you need them, but I'm happy for any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for staff?
Just a comment, I applaud the developer for going with the tile roofs to match the neighborhood, because I think that makes it look classy. It can be a little bit disconcerting when you've got two really opposing types of architecture there.
And I will clarify one thing. So the tile roofs are not required in the zoning, but if they want to have that added height, they can do that with the tile roof. So that's what that means. So the next step, we'll go to site plan, and I hope they retain that.
Any other questions for staff?
I also wanted to comment that I did appreciate the developer's willingness to maintain the 50-foot setback to the residential sites, and as well as looking in the area and the surrounding developments, this appears to be a very excellent infill for that area.
Would the applicant like to address the commission?
Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Wayne Thomas. I'm the applicant. I'm with Sunbelt Holdings. My address is 6720 North Scottsdale Road, Scottsdale, Arizona. Yeah, I just want to say thanks. We worked through Christian through this process, and I think, from even from the first iteration to where we got now with Christian's help, we've really come a long ways, and we're really excited about the project. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to have any questions for the applicant? Are there any speaker cards? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion for the RPS Indian School?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the rezone for the RPS at Indian School at Palm Valley, 21-200-00012.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clymer. Do I have a second?
I second that.
A second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, rezone for Thompson Funeral Chapel. Alex will be presenting.
Need a clanger
And
back.
if you could open the public hearing.
I'm going to open the public hearing.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Congratulations and thank you all for your service. Oh, no. Oops. Sorry, give me 1 second. Forgot how to use the computer. Okay. This request before you tonight is a Thompson Funeral Chapel rezone. Just for reference, the subject property is located north of Yuma. Yuma's right on the south edge of this page, west of Litchfield. It's in between South Camino Oro and Litchfield Road. Just some locations for reference. Just north of it, there's 2 churches here, I believe, Christ Evangelical Lutheran Church and then Hope Alive. The Thompson Funeral Chapel exists today on this east half of the property. Just to the south, the city of Goodyear has a building right on this parcel, and then south of that is a Circle K convenience store. I don't think there's any gasoline sold at that. To the east is single-family residential. We've got Sonny's Boxing Gym on the northeast corner of Yuma and Litchfield, and then another City of Goodyear building to the west here. The property is approximately 2.9 acres. So today, the zoning of the property, as it's split by this property line, to the east is C2 commercial, that's general commercial. Like I said, that's where the building sits on today. This west half, which this property was recently purchased by the Thompson family, is currently designated I-1, which is our light industrial zoning district. Surrounding properties directly north, this seems a little odd, but it's an MF24 district, but the churches are allowed in multifamily and all residential districts. So by the time it was annexed, probably in the 60s, it was annexed as MF24 and existing and operating as a church. So it's probably just maintained that use since then. To the south, you can see there's this vacant piece, which I didn't talk about, but is also zoned light industrial. Light industrials exists over here, and then the Goodyear site and then the Circle K are also zoned to C2 general commercial. To the east, we've got Litchfield Road, and then, like I mentioned, that single-family residential R17 district. The proposal is to rezone the property from C2 and I1 to a full C2 general commercial district with a PAD overlay, which I'll explain in a second. So just for reference, the C2 general commercial district does list funeral home as a permitted use. The I1 district does not. It is not listed in there. It's not listed in any other districts. So for the funeral chapel to expand to the site that they just purchased, they do need that C2 zoning. The PAD overlay portion is actually applicable to allow an above-ground columbarium site on their property. So with their expansion to the west of an additional chapel space, they want to put a garden and memorial area on that site. So these are just some examples, not necessarily how it will be built, but just something for reference. And then in this picture, you can see this is a conceptual site plan provided by the applicant. So existing site over here today, the new site that they've purchased, I believe the building, a new chapel would be located here. And then I think they were planning on the garden on this side closer to the church. This is conceptual and not to be approved with the zoning. If approved, they can then submit for site plan, design review on a new building, and all of that. As far as public comment goes, staff attended the neighborhood meeting that was held at Thompson Funeral Chapel on February 23rd. There was about 15 people who signed in. Some people may not have. There was a lot of people, but they were all interested. They were employees of the funeral chapel, friends of the owners. There was one resident who lives to the east. He had general questions and did not express any opposition. Other than that, we haven't received any objections or additional phone calls. That being said, staff does recommend approval of the rezone to C2 with the PAD overlay to allow the above-ground columbarium. And that concludes my presentation. The applicant is here and has a presentation if you'd like to hear it, or can answer any questions as well as myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to address the commission?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much, Commissioner, and congratulations to all of you on your recent election to your positions. My name is David Molinar. I'm with Archicon, Architecture and Interiors. We are the design firm that is currently helping or representing the Thompsons to present this to the city of Goodyear. The Thompsons have been in business for 65 years in this area and are very well established and have been also heavily involved in some of the local, very recent funerals of some of your past city mayor. They have also involved themselves in other large-scale funeral processions with your past with chief of police. The Thompsons, as was stated by Alex, recently purchased the property to the west of them with the hopes of developing it to a new chapel facility. What they have with their current would be turned into office spaces only, so that way they could interact with their clientele and provide a little bit more room for their functions as interior functions only. The new building that they're hoping to build will have a little bit larger chapel space. It will also have a reception area that is planned and an area for parking their vehicles that they use for their procession services. The proposed memorial garden that is going on towards the north between the church that resides at the north and the current design, as you can see here, will be columbariums as well as an area for contemplative use by the local community. The Thompsons expressed to the community at the time of our information meeting, as well as to Alex from the city, that they want to welcome the community to use this space as a place to come and just be with themselves or be with the loved ones, but also to use it as just a place to come and rest their mind from everyday trials. that is all I have to say about it. Thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, it is good to see Thompsons. They are a fixture in this community, and it is wonderful to see them expand and grow in this community. Are there any speaker cards? Seeing none.
Yeah, I would like to say also that in the 20 years I've been here, I've spent more time than I've ever wanted to in that place. But I've enjoyed the association with the Thompsons and how they've conducted their business. And it looks like a nice setup that you've been planning there.
Thank you.
I will close the public hearing. Can I have a motion for the Thompson hearing, Thompson Funeral Home pad overlay?
I move approval of the rezone for the Thompson Funeral Chapel, case number 21-200-0020.
Thank you. I have a motion from, can I see it? What is your, Commissioner Zambito? And I have a second?
I second.
I second from Commissioner Wang. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 6, the Starbucks use permit. I'll open the public hearing.
It's food and Steve is here.
Steve will give tonight's presentation on Starbucks.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, good evening. Steve Gretschia, Planning Manager. We will throw you a curveball, though, with signs later, so just be warned.
Uh-oh. We like curveballs.
Okay, but this item, it is a use permit for convenience use, which is a Starbucks drive-through restaurant. Where we're located, Cotton Lane here, Yuma Road. This is Canyon Trails Town Center, anchored by the Super Target here. Where the use is proposed is here's a pad right here, vacant pad right here, just south of the Bank of America. So this is the proposed parcel right here. And so surrounding it, we're pretty much in an established commercial center here. Cotton Lane now, but one day future 303, you can see the large right-of-way here reserved. Across to the west end, we start getting to residential within Canyon Trails. And so background, this is the Canyon Trails Town Center oriented here. This is the north here, Cotton Lane, Yuma. This is 91 acres of commercial, zoning approved in 2005. And again, all commercial uses within this 91 acres. And so the item before you tonight, it is a Starbucks drive-through coffee shop. And a use permit is required for this use because it has the drive-through. So generally restaurants, they're permitted use in our commercial zones, but once you add a drive-through component, that triggers the requirement for the use permit. So that's why this item is before you tonight. So this almost 1 acre parcel, it's an existing commercial center. Surrounding sites are pretty much, the improvements are pretty much done except just for the pads. It's proposed on the site, about 2365 square foot Starbucks building with indoor dining. They also have an outdoor patio, about 375 square feet. And this is the development plan submitted with the use permit. And I should just note again that right now we're looking at a plan that they still have to go through site plan approval. So use permit approval, and then also a site plan approval is required. But this is how the site will develop. Here's the building here on the pad, existing commercial existing parking surrounding the pad. They'll enter the drive-through here on the west side, order point right here, so they'll have the 5-car minimum queue that our code requires at the first stop. They'll wrap around, here's the window, then exit out, and then back out into the center. And these are the building elevations. And for pads within a center, we do require them to match the architecture, the colors, the materials of the existing center. So the Canyon Trails Town Center has an approved materials and color palette. So Starbucks picked materials, the colors to match the center. Also the architectural design. They grabbed several features from that center, incorporated it into this building. So our use permit criteria, there are two main ones that we look at. That it won't be materially detrimental, that'll be compatible with uses in the area. So again, we looked at this, it was an existing commercial center. We have several existing drive-through restaurants within the center. Traffic and queuing will be internalized. The traffic study did not show any impacts to our public streets. The queue, again, meets our standards. They do have the 5-car queue. And again, the nearest residential, it's 800 feet to the west across the future 303. So we don't anticipate any impacts that this development will have on the residential in terms of things like noise and light, trespass. Other criteria we look at in drive-through restaurants, convenience uses, parcel size, hours of operation. Again, the residential is 800 feet away, so no restrictions on hours with this application. All of the site improvements are in. They'll just do their improvements to their pad and their building. And other concerns, again, this is at this point before the commission, it's just a use permit. Staff will look at such things as site planning, grading, drainage, more development activities with the site plan review. Because it's a public hearing, we complied with our citizen review. We sent out postcards to all property owners within 500 feet. Also, because of a public hearing, we posted the property legal advertisement in a newspaper, as well as another mailing to surrounding property owners, posted information on our website. To date, staff has not received any inquiries on this project. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending approval. We find that it does meet the evaluation criteria. So we are recommending approval subject to the 6 stipulations in the staff report. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. Staff's available for questions. The applicant, Trish Flower, she is also available to answer questions.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions for staff?
No.
Would the applicant like to address the commission?
Hi, Trish Flower with Upward Architects. Just want to thank you for hearing our use permit this evening, and we think it's going to be a great addition to the existing shopping center. Hope to get the shopping center back up and running as it was on its way 15 years ago. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, I will close. Wait, are there any speaker cards?
No.
All right. Close the public hearing. Can I have a motion for the Starbucks drive-through?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the convenience use Starbucks and to include the stipulations 21-300-000012.
I got a motion from Commissioner Clymer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hedges. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Agenda item number 7, the comprehensive sign package for Estrella Commons. Alex will be presenting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For my final item, I have a sign package this time. Steve usually used to do them. So the property I'm talking about now is just east of Estrella Parkway, just south of Interstate 10, just north of the Aldi, and east of Walmart. Like I mentioned, so that's northeast corner of Estrella Parkway and Roosevelt Street. In July of 2021, the council approved a rezone of this property to a split between multifamily MF24 and then C2 general commercial with a PAD overlay to modify some of the development standards. The policy on signage, all signage must comply with the City of Goodyear zoning ordinance. However, comprehensive coordinated development areas can apply for a comprehensive sign package to provide for cohesive signage within a development center, and then they can request modifications, including larger signs, additional signage, and so forth. They do have to go to the Planning Commission and the City Council for a final approval, but they can request those deviations, as you'll see tonight. So this is a map. So to the left is north, to the left is the I-10. This exhibit is essentially showing, so the property will be split right about here, and then the apartments will be on the east side, and then commercial uses along the west side. This exhibit is mostly showing the monument signage that will apply to the property. So as I go through some of these exhibits, you'll see where these boxes are basically pointing to. So the first one, you might be familiar with this one if you've recently visited the Starbucks or the Aldi. This will be on this corner just across from where the existing one is, and will match the center. Kind of unifying the center. They'll have their a little bit different identities, but at least creating an entryway into the Estrella Commons community. The requested modifications, so these are two of the main signs. Right in this middle column is the zoning ordinance requirement, and then the requested deviation is on the right here. So the maximum area per the zoning ordinance is 48 square feet. They're requesting a maximum of 73, and that 73 actually is only applying to this sign, and that's because it includes the signage for the apartment complex. The other one wouldn't have that same signage, so in total 58 square feet, so only an additional 10 square feet for one, and then an additional, can't do math that quickly in my head, but you guys get it. Then the maximum height increase is requested from 12 feet to 14 feet, so 2 feet additional in height. The other, this is a bit of a trade-off that's proposed by the applicant. The commercial districts do allow for one monument sign per driveway. If you'll notice back in this map, there's essentially, and this is a multi-tenant monument, so it has the panels where multiple tenants can place their signage. So there's proposed, based on this site plan, there's one driveway here and then a second driveway here, and then similarly along Roosevelt, two separate driveways. So they're proposing one multi-tenant monument per street frontage. And that doesn't include these signs, which is separate in the zoning ordinance as well. So they would be allowed to have a few more signs along here if they wanted to. But that's the trade-off for more signage on one panel rather than multiple signage. So then the second sign, gasoline service stations are allowed to have the fuel boards along the street. The maximum height is again 6 feet, and they're requesting the increase to 8 feet, including, and then this design is consistent throughout the signage, or the sign package. And then finally, the multifamily residential monument, very similar to the gasoline signage, requesting an increase from 6 feet to 8 feet as well. So all other signs included in the package do reference the zoning ordinance standards and do not require any deviations. We found that the request meets the evaluation criteria described in the zoning ordinance for comprehensive sign packages. We found that the modifications requested are appropriate and acceptable, and staff recommends approval subject to the one stipulation, which just requests or requires compliance with the approved sign package. That concludes my presentation. The developer is here, and the sign developer as well can answer any questions you might have too. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Is there any questions for staff? Do we have any other signage? I feel like we just had a different set of signs that were requesting larger than typical. Did that just happen recently?
Vantage? Was that Vantage that we did at the February meeting?
That's right. Okay. All right. Is this going to, there are going to be like other sign packages in the future that where they're just going to continue to get larger and larger and larger, or are we just trying, what is the reasoning for the larger sign package just here?
Well, I can just quickly from the city perspective, we typically will see a comprehensive sign package for most unified developments. It is per the applicant's request to increase in size, so it just depends on what the applicant is asking for, but, oh, left.
Would the applicant like to address the commission?
My name is Andy Gibson. I'm with president of Boots and Duke Sign Company. I'm here representing Evergreen Development. This is what I do. I develop shopping centers and make sign packages for shopping centers in every city, municipality in Arizona, Denver, California, Idaho, all over the place. And staff being a little bit unfamiliar, me seeing and meeting the way comprehensive sign packages work is we work with staff to develop a nice sign package for the city to where you see what's best for the center. For this center, it was decided that 3 or 4 ground signs along that frontage wouldn't be aesthetically pleasing as one ground sign a little bit larger.
Okay.
So I mean, I just did a sign package last week and surprise, same thing. You asked for maybe something a little different that you work with staff to make sure everything's looks great at the center, the same color, same materials, and what fits the needs for the center. What needed for the center was 4 or 5 tenant panels on one ground sign instead of each pad getting their own ground sign. It would look cluttered. It wouldn't look as nice. You know, so that's kind of what we worked with staff to develop what we thought was best, and then also including the apartment complex name on one ground center, eliminating another sign. You know what I mean? So we can kind of incorporate that. But I'd love to answer any more questions that you have.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Was the little buffer, it looked like a little buffer area, the bricks at the bottom, was that just to get it up into the view?
Correct, yeah, so as people are driving by, they can't see usually the bottom 3 to 4 feet is usually unreadable, whether it's from bushes or just your eye level. So try to get the copy up a little higher. And then I did the sign package for Pebble Creek right off of the I-10 and Pebble Creek, and very similar shopping center. Their signs are actually a little larger than these signs are. So we didn't think we needed that large of a sign, so we brought it down a little bit and kind of brought it to scale that we thought would be good for the center.
This seems to be like a trend of less signs but slightly larger is what you're seeing a trend in that.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any speaker cards on this? Okay. Do I not have to close the public hearing for this one? Okay, thank you. All right, so may I have a motion for the comprehensive sign package for Australia Commons?
I motion to approve the comprehensive sign package.
I have a motion from Commissioner Booth and a second.
I second.
Second from Commissioner Zambito. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our favorite time of the night, and that is staff communications.
Second favorite, in front of
Second.
adjournment, right? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, my head is a little bit plugged up tonight, so excuse my voice. First of all, welcome to all of you. Thank you for volunteering. It's very important to the city. This commission is, I would argue to say, the second most important board and commission in the entire city, second only to city council. We often refer to you all as council light because you actually do most of the things that council does and related to development activity in the city. It comes through you all. So thank you for taking the time to serve. We appreciate your input. And as we've heard tonight, always reach out to us with questions in advance of the meeting. It'd be great if we could have those because there's sometimes some effort that we need to expend in order to get you some good answers. But we are here as a resource. You're not alone. We want to help you all be successful and help you all make the decisions that you think you need to make that's in the best interest of the city. So please consider any of us, Steve, Katie, myself, or any of the other planners a resource for you. We make ourselves available to you at any time. So given that, just as a little recap of the cases that the commission heard in February, although most of you weren't on the commission at that point in time, but these cascaded to the March 28th City Council meeting. The first one, Commissioner Clymer and Commissioner, Vice Chairman Clymer and Commissioner Kish, Chairman Kish, may remember was the debate that we had about the Cleveland rezoning on Saraville and Portland. If you remember, the commission created a stipulation requiring an access point to Portland.
Yeah.
So that went to council on March 28th. There was a lot of debate and discussion at the council level as well with regard to that. Council did approve it, but did in fact remove that stipulation. Council did request essentially a traffic study to support any other kind of deviations associated with the turning movements onto Saraville. So that would be taking place, and then this city traffic engineer will decide what is the best solution. So they did remove that stipulation. They did approve the project to go along with your recommendation, but did remove that stipulation.
Thank you.
If you remember, we had the Thrive at a Vision, or was it Alex, the Thrive at a Vision project? That was a sort of a townhome type project located on Van Buren. That was approved by council. Virtuous Citrus, which was Steve's project, which was a C2 property on the north side of I-10 at McDowell. And what is that, Citrus Road? Yeah, I guess so. It's in the name, right? Virtuous Citrus. That was approved by council as well. That was C2 with some light industrial uses as well. We had the sign packages we just alluded to for the Vantage Data Centers, which is under construction right out the door here. That was approved by council. And then lastly, on March 28th, as most of you probably are aware, our former chairman, Bray, got appointed to council. So we're fortunate to be able to work with him just in a different capacity. And again, we appreciate all of y'all's time. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Did the Bikini Bean Coffee Shop ever get back onto council?
Oh, yes, sir. I should have mentioned that. Thank you. The Bikini Beans was also on March 28th, February 28th, excuse me. And that did pass council as well. There was just a small amount of debate regarding traffic and things of that nature, but it was very small, so it approved.
I appreciate you highlighting the name for that.
Well, you know, it did, when it got to council, it did have the name. When it got here, we had no name.
All right. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on April 6th at 6 p.m. in this exact location. There being no further business to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.